JDL USA presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, public speaker, author, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Okay, we are back. Faithful are united. Greetings, everybody. We are getting ready for the weekly Parsha here. Hope everybody had a great week. And yes. So what do we have this week? We have LECHA. After the great flood and all the other stuff that occurred, God says to Abraham, LECHA, go for you. Go to for your benefit. Go to the land that I will show you. And there you will be a great nation. Interesting that he didn't really tell him where to go, but kind of did, I guess, because otherwise he wouldn't have gone there. But the point is that when you leave it's interesting that this is a connection to almost in the Gemara and the Talmud, they talk about this. When we want to do something very adventurous and very very different and breaking all the ground rules from our previous past. Many of you know that in order to establish yourself in the world, you have to leave your family, leave your home sometimes, and go to a different place. Indeed, in the Torah, we talk about that. We say if you want to learn Torah, you have to exile yourself. What does that mean? You have to go to a different place. Go somewhere where nobody knows you, where you're by yourself, and build up yourself in your own merit. Okay? And that's what God told Abraham. Basically, leave your nation, leave your home, leave your family, leave everything. Now that sounds, it might sound at first glance, it might sound not such a big deal, but try it, right? We don't see too many people leaving their home to go somewhere. One of the things about going to Eretz Yisrael and making Aliyah or living or whatever is you leave your present and you go to your future. And for many of us, it's a very difficult transition. But the rewards, of course, are great, as we know. So Abraham did that and ended up in the land of Canaan, not the land of Israel yet, although it was the land of Israel, but it was still occupied by people that were not Jews. And later on, we're going to find a very interesting passage in the Torah which says, Elu toldot hashamayim ba'aretz bihibaram. So the concept I'm going to talk about right now, some of you may know this, others may be new to you. The concept is, if you look at the word in Hebrew, bihibaram, it's the letters of Abraham's name, Avraham. And the Torah tells us that the whole reason for the creation of heaven and earth, Ele toldot shamayim ba'aretz, these are the generations of the firmament and of the land, of the earth, bihibaram, when they were created. But it's interesting that that word "when they were created" is the name Abraham. So the Torah tells us that the whole purpose for the creation of heaven and earth was that Abraham be created and that his seed will follow him in his righteousness in terms of being connected to God. Later on, we're going to talk about the brit milah, the covenant, the circumcision, the ritual circumcision of Abraham, and of course his seed after him. There cannot be any existence in the land of Israel, the sages tell us, without the brit milah. Many nations of the world do have a circumcision, as you probably know, but it's not a real ritual circumcision, which is the harder skin of the penis with the inner thin skin, which is the priya, as it's called. Two types of skin in the circumcision. So that needs to be done in a ritual manner in order for a person literally to be Jewish. If they're not that, then there's a problem there. But the point is there that the entire creation of the earth and the heavens was for the sake of Abraham, meaning that I know this is conceptually is very difficult to conceive of, especially when we live in a society, a mixed society, pluralistic nations where the Jews are scattered all over. And, we look around us and everybody looks normal. They look like us. We look like them. So what's the problem, right? I mean, everything's cool. But the inner workings of what's going on are very different. And unless we study the Torah and learn it, which is one of the reasons that God gave the land of Israel to Abraham, was God knew instinctively that Abraham would insist that his seed and the seed of his seed would follow derech havaya, the ways of God. What are the ways of God? The learning the Torah, being faithful to the Torah, learning it, studying it, and then us passing it, right? We don't keep it for ourselves. The whole point is that we have this amazing tradition that we pass on to our children, our children's children. And it's truly a miracle when you think about it. We I don't know how many generations we are since the first man, Adam and Eve, but literally we have succeeded as a nation through the Torah, because of the Torah. And it's almost impossible to imagine Jews living for generations, I don't know, 70 generations or whatever it is, without being intermarried, without being dispersed, it's called hitbolalut in Hebrew, mixing up our seed with other people so that we have no more Judaism. And yet we do. We have done it. Even in the most shocking and most brutal periods of human history, we have kept faithful to God. And it truly is a miracle when you really think about it. Not the Holocaust, not the pogroms, not the Crusades, nothing, not the Inquisition. Nothing has deterred us from this amazing, amazing legacy. So there we have it. We have the passage telling us that the entire creation of the world was created for Abraham. Now, you don't want to tell that to your you don't want to tell that to your next door neighbor, right? He'll probably punch you out or something. I don't know, throw a few pots at you or something. But that's just between us, right? There's some things that are true that you don't have to repeat the truth all the time, or maybe hardly ever, depending. That's one of them. And it's hard to imagine that the entire world would be destroyed, and it would be destroyed, were we to, if there were Jews everywhere in the world, if they stopped learning the Torah, there would be no reason for heaven and earth. I mean, when you think about it, when during the flood, right? A lot of people ask, well, what did the fish do? The birds didn't do anything wrong. Actually, it's interesting. The flood was designed to create a new world, right? Because man had become corrupt and perverted and all those things. What it says there is something that's very shocking. We're going back to last week's parsha, right? Noah and the great flood. What it says there is actually pretty shocking and absolutely amazing, that the animals, those beings that seemingly would be free from, perversion and jaundiced activity, they ended up mimicking the men on the earth in terms of perversion and being with others of their own kind. So we have a new generation now with Abraham, and Abraham's entering the land, and just so many interesting things. If you look at this week's parsha, when they go, there's a immediately when he comes in the land, immediately there's a starvation. There's a famine and whatnot, and he has to go to Egypt. Egypt back then was quite fruitful, a lot of good things. There were the Nile River was used to a lot of agriculture, so there was lots of food available. And he lived in Egypt for a while, with his wife Sarah. And it's funny, Sarah was a very, very beautiful woman. How do we know? Because everybody in Egypt wanted to, admired her. And Abraham told Sarah, please do me a favor. Don't tell anybody I'm your husband. Just tell them I'm your brother. That way they won't kill me because of you, on your account. But Abraham was different than Noah, right? I think we talked about this. Noah italech im Hashem. And then Noah needed God's assistance. He was a tzaddik, he was a righteous man, but he couldn't do it by himself. Whereas Abraham went before God. It says, italech lifnei Hashem. He went before God, meaning that he was independent. He knew his purpose in the world. His purpose in the world was to bring righteousness, to bring goodness. Indeed, in the next chapter, we're going to see that Abraham pitched a tent. You probably remember. Pitched a tent in the middle of the desert for strangers to come by. What kind of strangers? Arabs, right? Non-Jews. And they would come in, have what to eat, what to drink. And he pitched his tent in the middle of the desert for wanderers and strangers to just come by. And Abraham's whole thing was goodness, kindness, giving food, giving water, whatever. So think of it in terms of a brand new world where the first seed of the Jewish people, Abraham, our father, was created, and his destiny was to start a brand new world in a whole new world, to leave his home, leave his family, leave his father, and go to a land that he didn't know where he would end up. He just trusted in God, and God took him to the land of Israel. But he didn't really know where he was going. What is Abraham asked, after a couple of incidents in our parsha where he has to go to war, a whole bunch of kings, after vanquishing them, he asked, he went through a covenant with God. God promised him that the land of Israel would be hid for him and his seed. And Abraham asked him, well, what will be the merit, my merit to deserve this reward that you're giving me? And Hashem said to him, the offerings, the sacrifices, right, on the altar. Back then there was no temple, but there was an altar. And that is something that's another concept that's very, very unusual. The entire essence of humanity and of the world could be seen on that altar. We have the four different elements. We have man, animals, we have the vegetation, and we have the inanimate things. Salt, right? Wheat, animals, and of course, the highest of the species of all the species is human beings. The human sacrifices those things that need to be given to God in God's name, and that's another thing. In other words, the offerings, right, were the things that God will know that we have fulfilled our covenant with Him when we do the sacrifices, which are they ultimately to be done in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. So that's something to comprehend and to think about, and I think that basically is it. We are a generation. We're called an orphan generation. Basically, the only thing we have left of those amazing biblical heroes and iconoclastic types is the four cubits of Jewish law, meaning the Torah. Our temple is no longer, and Hashem, it says in the Torah that Hashem exists right with us. Wherever we open up our book, He's right there with us. This is the continuation of our covenant with God. Whenever you open up a Torah, whenever you open up a book and you're learning, whether with your wife or your family or a friend, you are literally keeping your part of the bargain, which is to learn the Torah. And when you do so, It's as if you are with God in the Holy Temple. It's really an amazing concept when you think about it. But it's true. We are going to have a chat session. I believe it's tomorrow night, or maybe it's next week. I'm not sure. Let you know when that will be, and we'll talk about all kinds of questions and issues that are popping up. One thing I can tell you is I have a lot of friends in Israel. I have friends all over the world. I'm very, very blessed. I have friends that came out of Iran, and they told me the following, that Iran's in the news lately quite a bit, causing its the usual melees that it's capable of doing. And I have friends that tell me every time it's Purim, everybody knows, is the great miracle when the king of Persia, Iran now, was going to, God forbid, wipe out the Jewish people. Well, the great miracle happened, and it was now fulku. It says everything was turned over, and the Jews overtook their Persian enemies. It's interesting that even today in Iran, some of you will be very happy to know that on Purim, that great holiday, the miracle, the Jewish people took over they rebelled against the masters then, who threatened to annihilate them. On Purim today, the Iranians are on full alert. With all their atomic bombs or missiles and the Hezbollah and the Hamas and Yashem Yimach Shemam, with all the things the nonsense that they're up to, they still look over their shoulder on Purim every year. This is another miracle. They say that Ela Berechev, Ela Besusim, Aval Anachnu B'Shem Hashem Mikra. They have the weapons, they have the chariots, and we have the Lord our God. So with that, a wonderful Shabbos to you all. As you read the Torah this week, be mindful of these amazing miracles, that we are the beneficiaries of these amazing things that have happened, and this is our legacy. So on that positive note, I wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. God bless everybody. And please try to give whatever you can to the JDL, that legacy left behind by our saintly Rabbi Meir Kahana. May God avenge his blood. And the JDL needs your help. This is one of the little avenues that we're using to let people know that we're here, we're out there for them in terms of education and outreach, certainly keeping alive the message of Rabbi Meir Kahana. God bless everybody. Have a wonderful Shabbat and all the best.